Hello and welcome to You Don't Know Her, a mindset podcast all about creating the best life for yourself, one by design, not by default. And for the third time, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Ben Ruddick. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks.
Yeah, good to have you back again. So, just to pick up, we'd started talking more about your move to the big city now, to Manchester and the goals there. And you interestingly said you're already looking ahead to your late 20s and thinking, when I'm in my 28, 29, I want to be looking back at kind of that I've not, that I've given it my best chance kind of thing. Because I've always heard and always been interested in the idea that a lot of artists say that they write the best stuff in the 20s. If you look at people like Kurt Cobain, you look at people like Amy Winehouse and all this sort of thing, and it's always the 27 club, isn't it? It's a bit depressing looking at it that way, but like even people like Kiss and Prince and Jimi Hendrix and Otis Redding and all these sort of amazing artists. Even the Beatles. George Harrison was 27 when the Beatles disbanded.
It's
mad to think.
Yeah, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, I think he was 14 when he was approached by John and Paul. So yeah, I remember there was a story of all of them. It was John and Paul that were like the big big songwriters to start with and stuff. And they just said there were all these daft lads going around Liverpool, and he said we heard that someone on the other side of Liverpool could play this one chord that none of us could play, so we hopped on the bus and we went over and we learnt the chord and then we hopped back and it was like...
That's bizarre. I like that. That's a good story.
But it's... I think... Are you a fan of the Beatles? The Beatles?
Yeah, I feel like it's funny because when people ask who my influences were and I tell them like how contemporary they are, because like I was born in like 2003, so like the music my dad got me on was like Kings of Leon, Arctic Monkeys. So and people go, what, you're 12? Like why was your dad getting you on these people? So I feel like I've worked backwards. Some people the bands they start with the Rolling Stones and stuff. But I went, oh well, who are my influences? And I have as I've got older, and you can tell from I feel like rather than pulling from three places, I feel like I'm not claiming this to be my quote. I've heard somebody say the difference between original and just ripped off is picking from 30 rather than 3. It has gone a bit like that.
Yeah, it's interesting to think because I mean the Beatles is another example of one of their earliest hits. They used to be a cover band and they used to do cover songs, and they did Twist and Shout. That was a big song of theirs in the early 60s. And they thought they were doing a cover of the Isley Brothers, but the Isley Brothers were actually doing a cover of a band called the Top Knots. Right. So it's like they were all all influenced by each other.
Cover chain.
Cover chain, and then I'm sure more bands have done Twist and Shout as a result of the Beatles doing it. But yeah, there's so much to be said for music and the Beatles. I mean, anything now. You can't, it's like a butterfly effect, isn't it? You're saying, is what's happening now in the music world, is that possible if the Beatles weren't a thing? Is that possible if Elvis before the Beatles, if that wasn't as much of a thing? The Beatles took a lot of inspiration from Elvis and Buddy Holly and things like that. So you've got to kind of take the whole musical landscape.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was intrigued you were talking about 20s. I was where you were going with looking retrospectively on this time of my life and like about writing your best material in your 20s. It's I suppose this is when life shifts really fast at this age, and you can be in a very different spot in 6 months than you are now, and everything's kind of on fast forward, and it has been. I feel like the city's cranked that up to the max. It's like that lifestyle. Everything is so. It's developing at such a rate, and that's that creatively that will influence you as well. And I'm aware that I maybe will look back on this time and think everything was so chemical, and there was so much energy that probably is my best work. Like what maybe I'm heading towards that, which is interesting. But the move has definitely helped facilitate that. I can tell when I'm getting creative because I get more manic in my gestures and everything. My friends and my bandmates can tell when I'm on a bit of a writing spree because it comes out across that's a bit of a weird thing, but it comes out in my entire behaviour. My mum will say to me, I bet you're going to be writing some songs soon. Just because I'll be like pacing the house, like anxiously, like twiddling my thumbs, because it kind of flows through my entire being. I feel like I'm not the kind of songwriter where it's a steady stream of material. It's I can't get anything, why can't I get anything, and then just everything all at once. Alex Turner said songwriting's like waiting for a bus. You sit there freezing cold for 20 minutes and then 4 of them turn up at once. It is a bit like that. And I don't know where I went with that. I go on a lot of tangents, and that works in. That's how my brain works. I think my brain's like a bouncy ball down a staircase, and that works into my songs and everything. It comes out. I'm bouncing around a lot of different places, and I feel like a lot of creative people are, which is funny. Creative people aren't necessarily the easiest to deal with, you know.
Yeah, because like I said, there's so many different things going on at once. I mean, if you're sat there trying to write the best song you can, and your mind is just not bouncing around, and it's just like focused on this, and you're like, oh, where do I go now? When you're trying to logically work it through, it probably you're never going to really get anywhere. It's not going to be from the heart. It's not going to be creative. But the way you're going about it, it's thinking, right, I'm not even going to try. I'm just gonna be myself. And being in a bigger city with more happening, I mean, my main songwriting colleague, a guy called Mikkel, lives over in Norway, and he moved to Oslo, the capital, to do a music production degree. And then whilst he's been there, he's now 25, and I know that he's writing his best stuff he's ever written, because he's now built that knowledge, and he's surrounding himself in an area where there's just more creative people around him, that kind of thing. So is that what you're looking forward to now about this kind of?
I think so, and I think I spent a lot of, I spent 15 to 21, like in my room learning the ropes of my own songwriting. I can't say you learn the ropes of songwriting; it's far too broad. But learning the ropes of my own creativity. The kind of colour palettes and stuff, tools that I had, what I could and couldn't say, what worked for me. And then I've built a bit of a foundation to take that to a new environment. I'm glad I had that kind of gestation period to have a bit of a grasp on who I was as an artist and as a person, actually. Because if I went to uni at 18, I wouldn't have been able to do it. If I moved to the city at 18, I wasn't ready, I wasn't equipped. But I have that grounding in, this is who I feel like I am currently, and the whole point is that I don't have a clue. Right, well, let's go try and figure that some of it out, or let's go see kind of how much fun we can have figuring it out. And there's something about youth and cities and songwriters, and they always work hand in hand. Like, I love the 1975, and I listened to their first album when like Matty Healy's like kicking around in Northern Quarter, getting up to no good, and it's just that youth, city life all happening at once in young bands. I was following a kind of like long lineage of songwriters in like from Bob Dylan to like Matty Healy. Everyone, you know, fled to the city with an acoustic guitar and a notebook. It's the old cliche, and I couldn't wait to follow it. You know, I was like, this is going to be really fun. Let's do the old cliche with a notebook and a whimsical eye, and gaze out the train window and write poems and see where this takes us. And that's really, everyone's done it for a reason, I think. It's a shift that you learn a lot about a lot of things, and you learn that you really didn't have a clue all along. And that's good.
Yeah, it's because songwriters are just there to be vehicles for ideas and inspiration almost. So you're just open-minded to, you're going to see more things in a city. It's not that you have to be in a city for the particular city or wherever it may be. It's just that environment is like going to foster ideas. I know I mentioned the Beatles, obviously. Paul McCartney, another one of his things was that, as you say, getting ideas in the middle of the night, 3:30 in the morning. He said he wakes up in the middle of one night with the entire melody for Yesterday in his head.
I heard that.
And he just went round everyone asking, do you know this song? Because he said, this song's too good for my man to have just made it up. And everyone said, no, we don't know it.
It's a little bit like, I'm not saying I've ever written yesterday, but do you know, earlier on when I was saying you write something that you think, that's not me.
Yeah.
I do dream a lot of my lyrics. I'm like a weird lucid dreamer. I can like control my dreams and stuff. So they always kind of blur with, I never quite know if they're kind of as real as being awake sometimes, and then that's bizarre. But a lot of my ideas come from, I'll wake up and I'll try and write it down while I've still got it. I'll be like, well, what was that? Not even word or chord. I'm not even. It's funny, I'm doing a music degree and I don't care that much about chords. Well, I do, but I don't. I like how they sound and how they feel, but I don't. We've discussed a bit off air about people who are more theoretical and problem solving, and certain elements that would probably do me some good, but I have none of it. I'm so whatever the other end of that spectrum is, and a lot of my friends are very. I've got a mate, Will, who used to play lead guitar in our band, and he's like up and coming sound man, and he'd fix anything. You know, one of them. He'd just give him anything and he'd fix it. You give him your guitar, he'll make it play the best it's ever played. And he's sound man at the Globe Theatre. He's doing sound at the Globe in Stockton, and the kid's 20. Like, so he's absolutely like set. He's gonna be. But me and him are like polar opposites in the way that we work. I've never fixed anything in my life, but I can link to completely unrelated things in a really weird way. So it's interesting how people differ with that.
Yeah, that's what makes everyone so unique and special. He's amazingly, incredibly talented at that side of it. But if you gave him a creative problem and said, here's a couple of random things, what do you think of this? His mind's just going to think, I can't think of anything because there's no logical ones.
Honestly.
Give me that bit of algebra again.
No, I don't want that. Yeah, I'll just plug this in, thanks.
Yeah, I do think it's two kinds of people. It's the creative avenue, and this is what I was talking to a friend about, who's he is looking to start to homeschool his child, because he said that he feels that he's done all his research and said that for what he wished he had, he thought he'd be a lot more kind of further forward in his career if he believed in himself from a younger age, or all that sort of thing. Whereas schools and some education systems kind of try to put people into kind of boxes. Whereas, and again, I keep bringing it up every chance I get. I'll keep talking about Billie Eilish, but she's another one who was homeschooled her whole life. She's never been to school. Her and Phineas and their parents were both musicians, but they weren't, successful musicians. They were just good musicians, and they said they never forced them down that route. They just said that they wanted them to both do what they could do. And Phineas went down the route of music production and songwriting, and he loves it. And Billie Eilish does, certainly in the documentary, she said she doesn't like songwriting, she likes singing. She'll write songs and she's very good at doing it. But it's like, it's a collaborative effort of them both being so different but so incredible. And again, they've just been given that creative freedom to do that. Like their entire life and their environment has been built around letting them believe that they can be good enough to be what they now are.
Yeah, and sometimes those people, like, who were more the way I am, they need a bit of a foil. They need something to a yang to that yin, And our keyboard player's always been that for me. We've known each other since primary school, and we used to be best mates in primary school, and then we didn't speak all the way through secondary school. We just had different friends, and then I started a band, and then he'd just gone a musical genius through secondary school while I hadn't known him. So then I was just like, well, do you want to come and like join? I don't really know what doing. But he's like he's got perfect pitch, so you play him any note and he'll tell you. Not like if it's sharp off, like he'll tell you it's an F sharp, he'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
And he's very much, he's like trained, and his theory is incredible. And I like to bring him mad off the wall ideas of mine, and then he can kind of mediate. I need a mediator. Because I either think everything's rubbish or everything's the best thing I've ever written, and nothing in between. I need people to go, well, that one's better than that one, because I can't tell what's better.
Yeah.
I just either know I love it more than anything, or I'm not really I'm kind of apathetic.
Yeah.
But he can also tell me why songs of mine work, which is not something he's like, oh, that's that thing you do where it goes from here to here, and you like it when it does that. And I'm like, oh, I do, don't I? Yeah, no, it does the 16th and then it goes halftime, but I'm not necessarily thinking like that, you know, when I'm making it.
Yeah.
But well, it's the learning. Sometimes you need that partnership, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's why the solo artist things never appealed to me loads and loads, because I can do a lot, but I'm better when I have somebody to kind of ground my ideas or help me filter them, because as like you're either connected and you're too close, you don't have the perspective, you're either connected to everything you write or you're too hands off, and it's difficult to find like a middle ground where you can think, well, I prefer this idea.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I agree with because obviously you're the principal songwriter, you know, you do it for your band, but it's still, even though they're not kind of contributing as much as you are, they're still like, it's good to have that as like a second pair of ears on it, isn't it? And go, oh, what do you think of that? And then maybe they'll even suggest things and be like, oh, you know, whatever. Or and like, say the people who can tell you why that song would be a hit, for example, and that one might not be, and it's something you won't have even thought about because that's not the way your brain works.
Absolutely.
So it's good to not do it yourself, basically, to surround yourself with people that have got your best interests.
Absolutely. And especially if you feel comfortable enough around those people to just give them rubbish ideas as well, and give them all the ideas and everything in between.
Yeah.
Because then when they come back and say they were moved by something, you know that they're not you know.
Yeah.
So when I started writing poems, and like I've written a few like long poems that I like learnt by heart, and they're like 4, 5, 6 minutes, and I'd never actually done them because I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, I can never actually perform this. I just look like so cringe or whatever. It's that fear of cringe will kill creativity. It's the enemy of self-critique, and fear of cringe will just make you utterly void of any idea. So I was just like, I can't ever show anyone this. And then I started showing it to the rest of the band. And then they were like, oh my Lord, this is the best thing you've ever made. You know, which is nice because they've seen a lot of the stuff that I've made. And then and you know that they tell you if it was no good.
But that's it, you're so scared going into that moment of thinking someone could criticise this or something like that. But really, take yourself out of the situation, you just know that it makes perfect sense to do it, because either it's going to make you feel better because they're all on board with it, or if they're not, it's still good for you because then you go, right, why isn't it as good as I think it is?
And I knew deep down that a lot of those poems in like that kind of side of my writing, I knew they were good, because otherwise I wouldn't have even I wouldn't have finished them, and I wouldn't have occupied the idea of doing them to my friends or doing them like an open mic. But I was just, there's no guitar to hide behind. And there's no bravado, and there's nothing lacks bravado like standing on an empty stage with a microphone and a notebook. That's the least bravado. Like, you're not trying to get girls to fancy you. It's not, there's no cliche, there's no nothing. That's just you, and that's what you have to say. And I found that the most terrifying and most rewarding thing I've ever done creatively. And like, even though I've performed to way more people, I've done crazier things, I've done cooler things, but people say, well, what have you done? I say, oh, well, I read poems that I wrote, and I still rank that. It's funny, like, people, for a band that we're not a massive band yet or anything like that, we've done some weirdly cool sounding things that people will come to me and go, well, what was it like to be on BBC or to support this band that I really like, or play, like, because these like all day festivals, you know, your Circle Waves will be headlining, or like the Zootons or any of these people, and people go, well, what was it like to play on the bill with them, or as if you got to do that. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever, I read poems. You know, because you can't control what you like really wasn't what fills you full of like meaning as a just achievement is subjective, isn't it? I think. There you go.
That's the quote.
Yeah, it really is though.
Yeah.
You can't your little lists achieve that are nothing to you, that can be the biggest hurdle, and rather than all of these kind of buzzword that you'd impress with somebody with at a house party by saying, oh well, when I was on Spanish radio, and they'd be like, oh my god, but it doesn't mean as much as when you know, like played your granddad a song you'd written about him. That can mean way more.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I could completely agree. Yeah, and I could talk to you all night about all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm just conscious that again, this is for the third and final time we're there, and I'm asking you, where can the people find you if they want to
find us on Instagram?
Yeah,
at gonetomorrow band. It'd be funny if I got it wrong. I just followed somebody else. They can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube.
Yeah,
all of the rest of it.
All the good
there
places.
You go.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Cheers.